Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Yogi Tea's, I gotta read it, Blackberry Apple Cider Digestive Awakening. And if you're having deja vu, it's because I had it last time, but I liked it and I thought I'd do it again. It was a beneficial tea, so yay me, I guess. But what I haven't done yet is my Victober wrap up for 2024. So here it is. I enjoyed my month. I did have a little bit of a not an interruption, but I mixed in other books, so which I'm not gonna talk about because they're not Victober related. But it was a good reading month, and the three Victorian books that I finished were all pretty good. I have different thoughts about them, but it was generally a successful for me month. Not so much in being able to read all the titles that I had in my TBR, but I knew, and I think I already said that that wasn't going to happen. It is what it is. Hopefully, I'll get to them another time. But first thing before I forget is I did even though I didn't get to read my Wilkie Collins, which is a disappointment for me, probably my biggest disappointment because I really wanted to do that. But I can still read it. I did listen to some Sherlock Holmes. What I did was at night sometimes I listen to podcasts, and usually they're history related or book related, or usually those two, and occasional other things. But I found that they have audiobooks, and they had the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And I said, well, I was going to read at least one adventure, so I said I'll put it on and see what I can listen to. And I was falling in and out of sleep. This is why I don't listen to audiobooks at night, because I won't stay awake for them, and I don't think you could count that as having read it. So I'm not really counting it as having read it, but that's okay because I've already read The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. But it was kind of fun to hear the beginning of one and then waking up in the middle of another one and hearing the ending of another one. It was just living in Sherlock Holmes land, which was fine with me. I think the ones I was able to hear some parts of were the what was it called? The Scandal in Bohemia, which is I think the first one, and the first short story. The Red-Headed League and the Blue Carbuncle. I believe those were the ones. So I don't know which ones have the adventures of in them, because there's always something that has the adventures of or the tragedy of or something. And those are all ones that I like. So it was kind of fun. It was a weird kind of trippy experience. Anyway, so that was fun. Did I mention it was fun? And you know what? This tea is fun. So it is still fun. Isn't that nice? So anyway, I'm going to start with probably my favorite book of the month, because I love Anthony Trollope, and most of the time he can't go wrong. And even when he does go wrong, it's usually somewhat enjoyable. And that was now the well-worn Ayala's Angel by Anthony Trollope. And I started reading it in September when I was on vacation and was enjoying it, and I read it through into October, and it was delightful. Moments of frustration when certain characters act a certain way, but otherwise very good. Someone called it one of Anthony Trollope's few only marriage plot stories without having really a lot of other side stories. I guess that's true. What really it is there are two sisters. Excuse me, Lucy and Ayala, and they become orphaned. And I think Lucy is 21 and Ayala's 19, so they're not super young, but they are of that class where you can't just go out and get a job. You have to find relatives to live with. I guess, and they probably weren't trained enough to be like governesses or whatever. So they end up getting split between two sets of aunts and uncles, and it's a little bit like they get shifted a little bit during the course of the story between aunts and uncles based on things that happen. Lucy is a little more of the practical minded, not quite an Eleanor Dashwood type, but closer to it than her younger sister. She's still, but their father was an artist, so they had that sensibility growing up. Being daughters of an artist, they were a little more, I don't want to say bohemian, but like just their outlook was different than their aunts and uncles. One set of aunts and uncles are very wealthy and very into money and status and marrying off their kids, and the other couple are, they didn't do as well financially, so they have to live a little more modestly, very much more modestly, and have to be on a strict budget, which doesn't mean that they're miserable, but they are not living it up. So taking in, a niece is a little bit of a struggle for them. But so they have different experiences, but the main thing is that these two sisters are of marriageable age. So Ayala, though, is stuck in a situation of her own in which she's very much not exactly Marianne Dashwood, but again, just using that parallel, she is similar enough in that she has a very romantic attitude about what she wants in a husband and doesn't want to settle for anything less, is willing to wait, is willing to live in poverty, etc. But she has, that's why it's called Ayala's Angel. She has this idea of this man who's like the perfect angelic being, obviously non-existent, so that she doesn't want to accept anyone who is interested in her, whether they're completely wrong, as some are, or they're actually pretty good, and she just doesn't see it because she's, blinded by their some kind of limitation of theirs that isn't really a big deal, but she's romantic. And at her age, I probably would have been similar enough to that myself, so that I sort of understand that over idealistic attitude. But because of that, there's a lot of ups and downs that happen to her, and the people around her get affected by it. But all's well that ends well. No spoilers, but I think it was a pretty satisfying story. There's a little bit of, there's a few people who are politicians, but not overly done, which is good. There was a fox hunt or two, and I'm not a fan of that. That's the one thing about Anthony Trollope that I really don't like. I'm not a big into fox hunting. I didn't like that for Downton Abbey either. But it is what it is. It's part of the story, and it is actually a very important part of the story, so I'm okay with it. I'm just pretending that it was like a clay pigeon, as I say all the time. That's what I pretend. I think I said that last time when I was talking about it. I don't know. Sorry about the absolute frog in my throat. I wish someone would hunt that down and destroy it. But anyway, I don't know if I can rate this as far as all the Anthony Trollope books that I have read and still have yet to read, honestly. So I think it's going to be not in my top ones, but certainly nowhere near the bottom. I think it's a very enjoyable. I recommend it. I think it was a good, solid Anthony Trollope. And I think I gave it a 4-star because it was very good. It just wasn't absolutely amazing. Blow me away. I hold Anthony Trollope to a very big standard because I like him so much. I like his writing so much that I'm a little overcritical. But I thought mainly some things I thought were just a little bit dragged out, but there was enough humor in it. There was at least a little bit of, silly men doing silly things, and people with all kinds of reasons for wanting to get married, and most of them weren't always for love, but I think love carries the day for the most part in this story, which I like. As a slight romantic myself, not overly so. Anyway, that leads me into the other book that had a romantic character and idealistic character, which is Mary Elizabeth Braddon's The Doctor's Wife, which was, I believe, the group read the big Victober read that month, and I think I've seen this painting elsewhere too. But this is about a woman who becomes the doctor's wife, Isabel, and she has a very novel-driven, novel-driven, just reading and not really experiencing much of real life. She, what are you doing, Freddie? Sorry, I got Freddie next to me doing that chomping, licking sound. If you can hear it, it's kind of gross, but kind of, what are you gonna do? He's a cat. Anyway, so she has no really good training for being a good practical wife, and her expectations of what she wants in life, similar to Ayala, but not exactly, because what Ayala wanted was this perfect angel. What she wants is more of a dashing, romantic, almost tragic character. So she's a little bit like Marianne Dashwood as well. But in her case, because the title is called The Doctor's Wife, she does get married to someone who is just not a romantic character, who is, I don't want to get too far into it, but he's not a bad person. He's a good person. He is a good husband, but just doesn't get her. So when she does meet someone who would have fit that category, what's going to happen? Is she going to follow her heart? What does her heart actually want? Will there be scandal? Will there not be scandal? Find out. But I know I'm not the only one who says this, but man, if you want to get spoiled about Dombey and Son, and a couple other things maybe a little bit, but especially Dombey and Son, oh my goodness. Don't read it. If you don't want to get spoiled, yes. I already have been spoiled. I still haven't finished Dombey and Sons, and so I'm okay, but man, you think in the beginning, oh my goodness, you just spoiled it. And then you think, okay, well, if that's it, that's going to be okay. Nope, let's talk about it again halfway through the book. Let's bring up more. But also there's a lot of references, and a lot of Victorians do this, references to things like in English history and other bits of literature that is, sometimes it's explained in the notes, but sometimes it's not. And it is, I have to say, I know not everyone is into British and English history as I am, but it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of that background knowledge when you're approaching English novels, etc., because it might help you understand things. Why I know this is because when I started reading these kind of books, I think I was in my late teens, so this is decades and decades and decades ago, and because I was reading when I was 1, and I'm 30 now, obviously, but so it's I know that I enjoyed those books, even though I don't remember most of what they were saying at the time. I know I enjoyed those books a lot, but the problem is that I know now, when I have occasionally gone to reread some of them, I realize that I didn't get so many references, and that it actually helps to know these things. But it's not like it's impossible to understand it, but I just think that just a little something there. Anyway, but that was I really liked The Doctor's Wife. It had its tragic elements, and it had something that I didn't figure out until the ending, a sense of danger that just didn't occur to me until later on, and I felt a little silly for not realizing it. So, just FYI, you might be able to put something together that I didn't if you're paying attention, which I guess I wasn't enough, but it was a really good book. Another solid 4-star. Anyway, this next book was a little bit of a disappointment to me. Not a tragedy. Still good. I still enjoyed it. But I found like I was reading it last thing at night, and it was helping me sleep. So I don't know if that's a good review or not. Not the best. And this is the second book I read by this author this year, but I think this is the only one that's actually of the time period that counts as Victorian. So we have Elizabeth von Arnim's Elizabeth and Her German Garden. Again, making another Downton Abbey reference. This was referenced in, I think, the second season, when Mosley is lending it to Anna, I believe. And he wants to talk to her about it. So they don't really say much about it. But this is, look, it's a Virago that I've read once again, because you can't see it today because I didn't have the camera trained that way. But I have a good amount of Viragos, and some of them are very small print, so I may have to just not keep them. I don't know, because my eyes are just at the point where I have to read, even with my best glasses, I have to read print that isn't completely microscopic. And this one was fine for me. Actually, this one was more than fine for me. And so, yeah, it's not like I don't have to read large print. I just can't read tiny print. So that will narrow it down slightly for me, but I know that I've had a lot of copies of these books over the years and have only read a few of them, so it's nice when I can make progress, which shouldn't be the only reason I read a book, but it doesn't hurt. And I like the pretty green, because green is my favorite color. And it is really just what it says. It's semi-autobiographical. Elizabeth von Arnim was brought up in England, but she did live in Germany after marrying a count, I believe. So she did have a garden. So at one point anyway. And this is about a woman who, because she is of a certain station, I guess, due to her marriage and other things, I guess. She has to be social to a point, but she's not really a very average German wife of that caliber, I suppose. And she, how do I say this? So she really finds solace in her garden. She does have a couple of people that she's close to. She has one particular friend that she enjoys when they visit. And she has 3 kids. She calls them the babies. And she loves them. And her husband is called something like the man of wrath. So I don't know. That doesn't seem to speak very well of him. But she seems to be at her happiest in her garden. She likes to read too. There are a lot of flower references, plant references that I don't always understand because my knowledge is limited. It makes me want to know more, actually. It makes me want to have a garden because that's something I've never had. There's a quote from, I forgot who it was, called, that said something like, if you have a garden and a library, you have everything, something like that. So I'm like, well, I have half of everything, but it's still enjoyable. There's still some moments of humor, especially toward the end when there is a visitor from England and they go out in the very cold weather, and this person is trying to write a book about her German visits, and is just a silly character, and they just seem to find humor in speaking to her and dealing with her. But it was enjoyable. I do relate to her to a point when you just want to be alone in the places that you want to be in. So it's in diary form, which did actually, I think, satisfy at least one challenge. Like I said, it was mildly humorous, and it wasn't a typical novel. It doesn't have like a massive arc, climax, whatever you want to say, major stakes or anything. But I would say it was a nice enough read, but it didn't give me this absolute, oh, I love this book feeling. So I would say it's probably my least favorite book of the 3 that I read. But it wasn't hateful. I didn't want to DNF it. I actually did want to read it. So I don't know if that's a good recommendation or not, but you who haven't read it yet, if you're trying to decide, you like reading about gardens and slightly different people of their time, it might work for you. So I wouldn't say don't read it, but if that's not exactly your cup of tea, then maybe something else before that. I don't know. So now I have another book of hers called Father, which I hear is really good. And I hope, because I read 2 books and so far they haven't been everything that I wanted them to be. Even in The Enchanted April, which wasn't terrible, but it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. Maybe I'm just having this high expectation of this author. I don't know. So I want to try that book sometime, hopefully within the year, and I hope to be pleasantly surprised. Stay tuned, I hope. Anyway, that is all for Victober. I definitely have other books that I plan to read that I haven't gotten to yet, like I mentioned before, and I hope that you will see them coming up soon, mentioned again, but I can't tell you when. A book that I was going to read last year, actually I started reading and continued reading a little bit after Victober last year, I'm going to start reading again in January with a group. So anything's possible, like I say. So for now, let me know in your comments if you haven't mentioned yet what you've read for Victober. If you read anything for Victober, if you wanted to read something, didn't get a chance to, let me know what books you had in mind, and maybe want to read another time. I don't know, whatever you feel like writing. Or if you have any comments about these books and what you thought about them, of course. If you just want to say hi, hello. If you like discussing these sort of books and these sort of feelings about books, please subscribe, have a like, give a like, take a like, whatever you want to say. And that is all for now. This is Catherine at Taking Tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea and book-filled day. Bye.